Revealed. 3 spine-chilling true stories of haunted cases police couldn't expose or so Rachel bated her breath as she flipped through the pages of the local paper. Whispers of discontent and mystery unfurled around her, sending chills down her spine. Every year, kids vanish without a trace, the bold headline screamed. Desperately, Rachel pressed her palms to the table, feeling the sweat pooling as her thoughts raced back to that fateful day 1 year ago. Her husband disappeared, swallowed by the very woods that bordered Maplewood, leaving her clutching at straws for sanity while caring for her 2 small children. Night fell, wrapping her home in darkness, when shadows danced tauntingly at the edge of the trees. The first few nights, Rachel dismissed it as fatigue playing tricks on her mind, until the whispers grew clearer. Insidious giggles lifting through the stillness, echoes of children playing in a world far removed from her own. Every night they teased her, beckoning with a twisted innocence. Rachel turned to evening walks, seeking clarity. The familiar crunch of leaves beneath her feet felt solid, grounding her against the encroaching strangeness. But soon those shadows bloomed. They morphed into shapes that seemed to breathe with malevolent intent, watching her from the darkness. Her heart quickened, panic curling tightly in her chest. What was lurking beyond her neatly trimmed garden? Clutching the newspaper, she found herself itching to learn more about her town's heart. The abandoned hospital at the outskirts held tales of the cursed, the distressed. Ghosts of children who would never recite nursery rhymes echoed in those sterile halls. And as she did her digging, the friendly faces of her neighbors began to shift. They weren't just concerned folks offering casserole dishes anymore. Their smiles faded, replaced with an anxious tension that made her skin prickle. The police brushed her worries aside, repeating the comforting mantra, just kids wandering off. She felt the tendrils of mistrust weave tightly around her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air thickened with dread as she combed through the fragments of unsolved disappearances. It all twisted back to the hospital, the whispers warning of trapped souls seeking vengeance. Would she confront ghosts of the past or discover terrifying truths about her community? Once again, her heartbeat quickened. The weight of her discovery pressed down heavily, especially when her youngest child vanished. One moment he was playing at her feet, the next gone. Panic flared as she raced to the corner store. Her desperate pleas met with indifference. The officers glazed over her, sips of lukewarm coffee more captivating than her child's absence. Just kids wandering off, they echoed the same insidious refrain, a cruel irony that sent her heart plummeting. Frantic, Rachel scanned the faces of her neighbors, whose kindness had morphed into cold masks. Secrets thrummed in the air. She could almost taste the desperation. Shadows danced at the edge of her reality, whispers weaving tales of horrors she had just begun to unearth. Could the monster lie in wait within her own community? Time ticked away, forcing her to confront the dark truth. Would she uncover the chilling connection before it was too late? Or would she lose everything she cherished? Rachel's heart raced as she stood frozen, staring at the empty patch of grass where her son had just been. A cold sweat clung to her back, the air heavy with a silence that felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. The sun had nearly set, casting long shadows that twisted and turned in the fading light. She could feel the panic rising, bubbling over into a frantic scream, but no sound escaped her lips. "Danny!" she called out, her voice shaking. The stillness that followed was deafening. There were no responses, no reassuring giggles, only the rustling leaves whispering tales she wasn't ready to hear. Dread crept back in, wrapping around her throat like a noose. Every instinct told her to bolt back inside, to lock the doors and hide away from whatever sinister thing might be lurking just beyond the faint glow of her porch light. But her legs felt heavy, weighing her down with the sheer terror that had become her new reality. She forced herself to take a step, hearing the crunch of gravel beneath her shoes like a gunshot in the night. The shadows shifted again, almost as if they were alive, darting just beyond her vision. Racing back to her house, Rachel dug through her phone, hands trembling as she scrolled through contacts searching for anyone who could help. But the police wouldn't take her seriously. They hadn't before. Would they even care to listen now? Think, she muttered under her breath, trying to gather her thoughts. She remembered the faces of the neighbors, all those tight-lipped smiles and knowing glances, but who among them was truly trustworthy? Had she unknowingly walked among those who had secrets too dark to share? Suddenly, she heard a soft, sweet melody drifting through the air, out of the woods. It lured her like a siren-esque call. The sound of children laughing. It sent shivers coursing through her. A sickening mixture of dread and longing. Rachel felt drawn to it, compelled to follow despite the warning bells ringing in her mind. She stepped onto the path leading toward the forest, the trees silhouetted against the dusky sky, sharp and threatening. As she angered the silence, her heart raced with each step. "Danny!" She yelled again, this time louder, only to be met with the same haunting silence. Then, just ahead, something flickered, a flash of white among the branches. It danced and disappeared as quickly as it came, leaving Rachel standing at the threshold of the woods, heart pounding, breath shallow. "Please, where are you?" she pleaded, stumbling deeper into the woods. The laughter continued to echo, louder now, surrounding her, wrapping around her like vines. Was it real? Branches scratched at her arms like fingertips grasping for her. She stumbled, heart racing as darkness clawed at her from behind. Just when she thought to turn back, she glimpsed a figure small and childlike standing at the edge of a clearing. "Danny," she whispered, voice trembling. The figure didn't turn, it merely stood still, swaying slightly as if caught in a breeze that didn't exist. Rachel's instincts screamed at her to run. She couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching her from every shadow, breath against her neck. The whispers crescendoed into an urgent rush, a chorus of pleading voices from the shadows. "Help us," they seemed to chant. Rachel felt her blood run cold. This time it wasn't just her child missing. Who were these voices? Were they the forgotten, the lost, begging for release from this nightmare? With a final desperate cry and a flick of movement, the figure in front of her vanished into the darkness. Rachel gasped, dread coiling in her gut. Time was running out. She needed to act now, before whatever was lurking in the shadows consumed everything she loved. Would she find Danny or uncover something far more sinister lurking in the woods? And then as she spun around to flee, the world changed. The laughter faded, replaced by something darker and more sinister, a deep growl rising from the ground beneath her. What was waiting for her? Hidden in the folds of the earth. Something or someone was coming for her. Rachel turned, breathing hard, the fog of fear wrapping tighter around her. The growl reverberated through the ground, a deep guttural sound that resonated from the shadows. She could feel the vibrations in her bones, like an echo of an omen she was too terrified to confront. The laughter was gone, leaving only the unnerving stillness that seemed to suffocate her. "Danny!" she shouted again, forcing the name out as if it might bring him back to her. The woods only closed in, and the darkness throbbed like a heartbeat. Then she noticed movement. A shadow slipped between the trees, too quick to identify. Her pulse quickened. "Show yourself," she yelled, clenching her fists with determination. But nothing responded. The only answer was the wind, teasing her hair, spinning like a ghost hunting for lost souls. Her instincts fought against the overwhelming desire to flee. She breathed deeply, trying to drown out the panic swelling inside. More than anything, she needed to stay focused. "If I'm going to find him, I have to keep moving," she muttered, and forced herself to step deeper into the darkness. The air grew colder with every stride. Twisted branches reached out like grasping hands, and her heart hammered loudly in her chest, drowning out all sound until it wasn't. She could hear it again, a faint hum weaving through the trees. It was familiar, like a twisted lullaby. The unsettling thought clawed at her. Was it the same laughter she'd heard before? "Please, Danny," she whispered, desperation coating her words. As she pressed further, the chill intensified, coiling around her limbs like an icy snake. The shadows shifted, and suddenly, she caught a glimpse of something wrong. Dark figures flitted just out of reach, circles of darkness that danced away from her, whispering incoherently. "Help us," echoed again, a chilling refrain that trapped her in a cycle of fear. Rachel froze, dread clamping down as she took in her surroundings. The trees were too thick. The shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, looming menacingly. She wasn't alone. There were faces distorted and pale, staring back at her with hollow eyes. She could hear the soft cries, the desperate pleas of lost children filling her ears. Suddenly, one of the figures stepped forward. A small girl with tangled hair and dirty clothes, her face smeared with grime. "Help me," she whispered, her lips barely moving, yet the sound rang clear. Rachel's heart broke at the sight. But she couldn't lose herself in the despair. She had to find Danny. "Where is he?" Rachel demanded, her voice shaking. The girl's eyes flickered towards a thicket behind her and then vanished into the shadows, leaving Rachel standing alone amid the dull whispers. She hesitated, weighing the choice in her mind. Did she dare follow? Overwhelmed by a sense of urgency, she sprinted toward the thicket, pushing through brambles that clawed at her skin. Each step felt like stepping deeper into a nightmare that didn't want her to escape. The growl from before echoed back, closer now, a warning she couldn't ignore. "Danny!" The cry escaped again, but it fractured the silence, inviting the lurking presence to draw nearer. A chill wrapped around her, a primal instinct warning her to flee, but she pressed on. Then in an instant she stumbled into an open space. It was a clearing, illuminated by an unnatural light that shimmered in a pallid glow. Shivers shot down her spine as she scanned the area. In the center stood a small crooked tree, its gnarled branches twisted like a macabre hand reaching toward the sky. And there beneath the tree lay a doll. The sight struck her with dread, a deeper understanding sinking in. She wasn't just in danger. She was part of something far larger and darker. In that moment of realization, chaos erupted. A bone-chilling laughter erupted around her, the shadows closing in as they reached for her. What had she stepped into? Rachel turned to run, feeling the ground shifting under her. The world was not what it seemed. The air was thick with the weight of ancient secrets waiting to collide. And then she heard it, her son's voice, gentle yet heart-wrenching, calling from the very depths of despair. "Mom!" As she raced towards the sound, the shadows clawed for her, and Rachel's heart thundered as a feeling of impending terror enveloped her whole being. What awaited her at the heart of darkness? She had to know. Rachel sprinted, driven by the echoing call of her son that pulled her deeper into the haunting woods. The air thickened with dread as shadows twisted and coiled around her, but she pushed through the ever-thickening fog of horror surrounding her. The laughter faded, replaced by an ominous silence that screamed danger. The growl from the unseen creature still loomed close, waiting, watching. "Danny!" Her voice trembled, cracking under pressure, but she shouted again, her urgency growing. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground itself conspired against her, anchoring her in place. But the memory of Danny's voice propelled her onward, even as the shadows flickered more fiercely, more violently. The clearing she stumbled into expanded before her, an otherworldly scene framed by towering trees that seemed to draw closer with every heartbeat. The crooked tree in the center dominated the landscape, a grotesque monument to lost innocence. The doll beneath it lay on the ground, an innocent face, yet the malevolence radiating from it felt palpable. It seemed to pulse with life in a way that sent chills racing down her spine. Rachel glanced around, hunting for any sign of Danny. Her eyes darted back to the doll, the soft whispers of the children swirling around her like a haunting symphony. "Help us," they pleaded over and over again, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was a grotesque invitation or a warning. The shadows thickened, casting distorted forms that seemed to leer at her, and Rachel's lungs burned as she stepped toward the doll. A flock of whispers surged. "Help us, bring him back." Her heart sank. The words formed a desperate pleading that struck a nerve she couldn't ignore. She didn't have to save everyone. She needed to save Danny. But what would it cost her? With trembling hands she reached for the doll, every instinct screaming to retreat. The moment her fingers brushed against its fabric, a shock of static surged through her body. The laughter erupted again, louder this time, as if mocking her. The shadows quaked and churned, and from within the darkness emerged shapes, twisted forms of lost children, their faces shadowed but eyes wide and pleading. "Mom!" The soft voice shattered through the turmoil, slicing through her fear like a blade. It was Danny. "Where are you?" she cried, her voice cutting through the panic. The shadows recoiled, and for a fleeting moment, the air stilled, the whispers fading to a hushed murmur. There." The voice echoed from somewhere beyond the tree, piercing through the shadows that clawed at her. Rachel's heart raced as she turned to run again, adrenaline surging through her veins. Each step felt like a leap into oblivion, the darkness clawing at her back and the depths of her mind. A sinister thought emerged: what if this was a trap? What if saving Danny meant sacrificing herself? Mom, please. Danny's innocent plea pulled at her heartstrings, igniting a fierce resolve that pushed aside doubt. With a deep breath, Rachel lunged toward the source of his voice, plunging back into the thicket. The growls intensified, rattling her bones as the laughter soared, echoing off the trees like a sinister melody. She pushed through the underbrush, branches tearing at her clothes, but she couldn't falter now. She had to find him. As she broke through to another clearing, the terrain quaked ominously beneath her. In the center lay a small lake, the water smooth and reflecting the chaotic sky above. Within it, she caught a glimpse of movement, rippling like a trapped soul trying to escape. No, Rachel backed away, horror crashing over her as the truth dawned. What she saw in the water was a reflection of her own terror, the smiling face of her son, shadows pulling him under. Mom! The echo beckoned from the depths, wrapping around her heart with icy fingers. Rachel felt the chilling grip of despair close in again. The shadows rolled, and with a swift movement, the landscape shifted again. She was losing ground. With each heartbeat, Rachel faced an agonizing decision: would she dive in after him, risking everything, or would she turn, facing the darkness behind her, hoping to break free? Which choice would seal their fates forever? What awaited her in the depths of that shimmering water? She had to know. As Rachel teetered on the edge of the lake, the world around her faded to a distant murmur. The reflection of Danny's face twisted and danced on the water's surface, his bright eyes appearing to plead with her, full of innocence and desperation. Mom, please, echoed, a haunting melody that tugged at her very core. Her heart raced, pounding fiercely against her ribs. The water shimmered like glass, but she saw the darkness lurking beneath the sinister shadows, clawing at reality, pulling at her son. Was it a trick of the mind? She couldn't afford to dwell on that. Not now. Danny needed her. He was out there, his voice a lifeline in this storm of fear. She spread her arms, about to plunge into the unknown depths, when a deep growl pierced the air, louder, more feral. The sound vibrated through her, freezing her in place. Behind her, shadows writhed, coalescing into grotesque shapes. They twisted, morphing into the tormented faces of lost children, each one a tale of sorrow and despair, frozen in time with eyes that burned with urgency. Their whispers grew into a chorus, each echo a reminder of the sacrifices made, the lives torn apart. Don't let him go, they cried, their voices entwined with the darkness that loomed over her like a storm. Get away from him, Rachel shouted, bolting back toward the shadows. She felt small and powerless, but rage filled her up like a flame. Behind the doll and those lost souls, she sensed a power, something ancient and twisted. In that moment she knew. She wasn't just fighting for Danny. She was fighting for every one of them, every lost and broken dream in this cursed place. As the growls intensified, Rachel's will surged. She turned back to the lake, unbridled determination flooding her veins. She would dive in, she would drag Danny back. Visions of her son's laughter filled her head, erasing fear, fortifying her resolve. With a fierce cry, she dove into the water, cold fingers surrounding her as she sank into the depths, the light above her fading. The water was thick, heavy with shadows, making it hard to swim. She kicked desperately, clawing toward the fading image of Danny, but something gripped her ankle, a force pulling her downward. Panic clawed at her throat as she twisted to free herself, only to see what lurked below. Twisted hands of darkness reaching for her, faces morphing into ghastly grins of malice. They wanted her to join them. Mom! Danny's voice echoed closer now, each word a beacon of hope. She fought through the terror, each stroke forward feeling like a battle against the whole of the abyss. I'm coming, she gasped, the water swirling, the darkness tightening around her limbs. Suddenly she broke through to an open space, bubbles burst around her, the reflections creating eerie, fleeting images. She saw him again, the laughter in his eyes, the warmth of his smile. But he was fading too quickly, shadows gripping at him with desperate fingers. Danny! She lunged toward him, reaching out. Just a little further, a churn of darkness surged from below, cutting her off. Bubbles blurred her vision, and with a final push, she found Danny's hand, locking her fingers around his. But as she pulled him closer to her, she felt the change. The shadows roared an angry whirlpool, pulling them down into a waiting abyss. "Mom, I can't breathe." His panic ignited a new kind of dread deep inside her. Rachel plunged deeper, fighting the suffocating pull of darkness. There was no turning back. No second chances. What if she couldn't bring him back? What if in that moment, the unseen force began to shatter her resolve? Its grip intensified, snatching at her hope. She felt a gasp escape her lips, the water filling her lungs. The shadows whispered words of despair. Would the darkness take them both? Would she sacrifice everything for a flicker of chance? Or would she have to let go of the one thing she loved most to save herself? As the murky depths threatened to engulf them entirely, one question burned brightly. What would she have to face to drag them from this nightmare? Darkness enveloped them, wrapping around Rachel like a suffocating shroud. The cold water clawed at her skin, hungry and relentless. For a moment the panic almost paralyzed her. She couldn't let go of Danny. His fingers were like a fragile thread, pulling her back from the brink of oblivion. "Hold on," she shouted, feeling the weight of her words disappear into the abyss. She kicked against the darkness, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. She felt the grip lessening, the shadows retreating slightly, as if sensing her determination. But then, a chilling breath swept past her ears, whispers, a chorus of lamentations that echoed through the cold water. "Join us forever." The sinister calls grazed her mind, trying to weave doubt into her thoughts. The faces of the children swirled in her memory, haunting reflections that seemed to plead. "Not you too," she screamed, squeezing Danny's hand tighter. "We're getting out of here." As they struggled, Rachel could see the faint flicker of light filtering through the water above. It was faint but growing, a beacon calling them back. She pushed forward, Danny propelled by her strength, but the darkness shifted again, swirling violently. It hissed, unfurling its claws, eager to reclaim its prey. "Mom, I'm scared." Danny's voice wavered, tearing at Rachel's heart. She could hear the tremor in his words, feel it rattling in her bones. Was it too late? Was the darkness too powerful? No. Suddenly the shadows surged once more, desperate to swallow them. Rachel pulled Danny closer, their bodies locked in a protective embrace. A deep growl echoed, vibrating through the water, as if the very lake protested their escape. She surged forward, the light above them growing brighter. The water thinned, and with one final kick, she broke through the surface, gasping for air. With Danny in her arms, they splashed and flailed. The cold wind hit their skin, a jarring return to reality. But as Rachel turned to haul Danny onto the shore, the moment shifted. Dark laughter coiled around her, a malevolent echo that ricocheted off the trees, a sound that belonged not to this world, a sound that belonged to the shadows. What was that?" Danny gasped, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. Rachel's heart raced as she scanned the shore, but everything seemed normal. The lake shimmered under a pale moonlight, yet something was wrong. A chill settled deeper in her bones. She felt the shadows swirling back, pulling at her edges again, weaving into the very fabric of the night. "Mom, are we safe?" Danny pleaded. His small voice shaking, she shook her head, unsure of how to answer. The water still rippled ominously around them, and the dark breath of the lake seemed to beckon. "We need to go now," she urged, pulling him up. Just as they took a step away from the shore, the bubbling waves stilled and a dark figure appeared. The water parted, revealing a grotesque silhouette blanketed in the remnants of lost souls. Its eyes were hollow, glossy, glinting with a hunger for despair. Rachel stumbled back, her grip on Danny tightening. "Run!" she screamed, adrenaline pushing them forward, but the figure shifted, blocking their escape. "We aren't done," Rachel it hissed, its voice a twisted mockery of the cherished moments they shared, distorting her memories, fueling her fears. "He belongs here just like the others." With Danny still holding tightly to her side, Rachel faced the creature head-on. Anger burned in her chest, a new fire igniting within her soul. "No, I won't let you take him." The creature only laughed, and in that moment, Rachel realized the fight had only just begun. As the figure began to advance, engulfing the air with its chilling presence, the shadows surged forth to claim what was theirs. Rachel's heart pounded wildly in her chest. Was she strong enough to face this, To face the darkness that had haunted her and her son for so long. In that unsettling silence, echoing with the promise of chaos, a single question hung in the air waiting to be answered. What would she sacrifice to protect her child from the horrors lurking in the shadows? What price would she pay to untangle them from the grasp of this nightmare? Rachel felt the weight of the creature's presence, its dark aura suffocating. Her breath came in frantic gasps. She clutched Danny, her heart hammering against her ribcage. "Stay behind me," she demanded, though uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. What could she do against such evil? The figure lunged forward, and Rachel instinctively stepped between her son and the encroaching darkness. Hands trembling, she faced the monster. "You want to take him?" Her voice trembled but carried fierce defiance. "Oh, but he's already part of me," it hissed, eyes flickering with malicious delight. "Just like the others. Join us or let him go." The words sent a chill through her veins. "Let him go." "He's not yours," she shouted, her voice breaking a little. But the creature just laughed, a cruel sound that sent shivers racing down her spine. Suddenly, the shadows writhed and slammed against her legs, like a living nightmare trying to drag her into the abyss. She stumbled, but fury ignited a spark within her. Rachel was not a victim, she was a fighter. "Danny, run!" she yelled. But he hesitated, eyes wide, caught between fear and confusion. "Mom, don't leave me." He didn't want to abandon her, even when she felt the fear radiating from him. "I want to let it take you. Just go." She couldn't show him the depth of her fear. "I'll fight it. Just go." Time seemed to freeze, and for a heartbeat, their eyes locked. In that raw moment of connection, Rachel understood that no matter what happened, she had to protect her son at any cost. Danny turned and bolted, his small legs pumping as he sprinted toward the distant trees. Relief flooded Rachel, but that relief was short-lived. The creature's laughter grew louder, saturating the air with dread. "You think you can survive alone?" it taunted, its voice echoing like thunder. Rachel didn't look back. She clenched her fists, prepared to confront the darkness. But it lunged at her, sharp tendrils reaching out, wrapping around her wrists. Fear twisted in her gut, pulling hard as it squeezed. She fought against it, but the shadows were relentless, wrapping around her, constricting with icy grips. Then in the chaos, something sharp brushed her leg, a piece of wood, half buried in the ground. With a furious push, she grabbed it, using every ounce of strength to swing it at the encroaching darkness. The wood collided with the tendrils, sending a shockwave through the shadows. They recoiled, hissing like angry serpents. "Get away from me!" she screamed, swinging wildly. Each movement sent adrenaline coursing through her, nullifying the fear just enough to keep her standing. But in that moment of rebellion, she saw Danny out of the corner of her eye, standing frozen by the trees. The shimmer of moonlight cast an ethereal glow on him, but shadows were creeping closer, hungry and twisted. "No, Danny!" The desperation clawed at her throat, and she charged toward him, fighting through the darkness. "Mom!" he yelled back, eyes wide, tears streaming down his face. As she reached him, she felt the chill at her back intensifying. She spun, her makeshift weapon raised, feeling the energy merge, a desperate, protective resolve. "Stay close," she ordered, brushing away Danny's tears as she pulled him against her side. Together they faced the darkness that loomed, anticipating their next move. But just then, the shadows recoiled, as if sensing a shift. "This isn't over," the creature hissed, its form flickering back into the depths of the lake, vanishing into the depths once more. But its laughter filled the night, a promise unfulfilled. Rachel's body quivered, and her breath came heavy. The nightmare wasn't over. They had only just begun to unravel the horrors lying in wait. "Mom, what do we do now?" Danny whispered, fear lacing his voice. Rachel looked into the darkness, the void that seemed to breathe right back at her. "We prepare," she said, the weight of the evening flooding her senses. "We prepare for what's coming next." Behind the fading laughter, a whisper began to form, chilling them both to the bone. "You can't escape your fate." What awaited them in the shadows? Fear wrapped around Rachel like icy fingers, but she steeled herself, ready to confront whatever else might come. Unbeknownst to them, the biggest revelation was yet to come, and it might shatter everything they thought they knew. The shadows swirled around Rachel and Danny like a tempest, pressing against them from every side. Each gust felt like a cold hand brushing against their skin, creeping in beneath their clothes, stealing warmth. Rachel tightened her grip on the fragment of wood, her knuckles whitening, heart hammering. "Mom, I don't like this," Danny whimpered, clutching her shirt. His voice trembled, a soft echo of the horror pressing in on them. "Neither do I," Rachel said, barely above a whisper. She glanced back into the dark, scanning for movement, for anything that might emerge from the black abyss. "But we have to find a way to fight it." "Fight what?" he asked, voice shaky but more curious than afraid. She could see the fight inside him beginning to spark. "Whatever that thing is," she replied, her tone determined. "We have to understand it to defeat it." Danny looked toward the trees, shadows stretching like skeletal hands, drawing closer. "Is it gone?" "I don't know. But we need to move. We can't just stand here." She felt the urgency. It wouldn't take long for it to return as they edged towards the tree line. The air felt electric, thick with the unknown. Each step sent a pulse of dread racing through her. But there was no time for fear. She had to lead him away, protect him from the nightmares that coiled around them like smoke. They stumbled into a small clearing lit by a faint glimmer of moonlight, a brief sanctuary. Rachel held Danny close, half hiding him behind her, scanning their surroundings for potential threats. The wind changed, carrying a distinct whisper. "Don't run too far. You belong to me, Mom." "What is that?" Danny asked, trembling. "It's just the wind," she replied, trying to sound reassuring. But her heart raced, betraying her false confidence. "Forget it. We need to stay focused." She peered into the dark tree-line. The absence of sound was unsettling. Even the rustling leaves had fallen silent. "We need to find somewhere safe," she said with conviction, though deep down doubt gnawed at her. They could be running into the creature's trap. "Where do we go?" Danny squeaked, his innocent eyes wide, searching her face for answers. Rachel tightened her jaw, forcing herself to think. "There's a cabin near here. We'll head for it. If we can get inside, we might find something we can use." She hesitated. "We might be able to lock it out." As they darted towards the cabin, memories of her childhood flooded back, the tales of what lurked in these woods. Her father's warnings rang in her head, tales of spirits and shadows, always reminding her to avoid the lake after dark. They reached the cabin, hoping it was still standing. Its silhouette was stark against the night sky, worn and dilapidated, as if nature had slowly reclaimed it. "It looks old," Danny said. "Are you sure it's safe?" "Nothing is safe right now, but it's our best shot," Rachel replied, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. She pushed open the creaking door, the wooden framework almost protesting against the invasion. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with dust and memories. A small table, a few chairs, and a broken lantern stood like relics of a past life. "Keep quiet," Rachel whispered, still clutching that piece of wood like a lifeline, while she searched for anything useful. In the corner, she spotted an old toolbox. The door slammed shut behind them, a loud bang that reverberated through the cabin. "Mom, what was that?" Danny squeaked, a fresh wave of panic flooding his voice. "Nothing, it's just the wind," but she knew better. It was crawling closer. She hurried to pick through the toolbox, her hands trembling as she searched blindly through the contents. There had to be something, a hammer, a nail, anything that could serve as a weapon. Outside, the laughter returned, echoing through the trees. But this time it was different, haunting as if it were right outside the door. "You can't hide not from me." Rachel froze, feeling the conviction draining from her. "What do we do?" Danny's whisper broke, laced with panic, and Rachel felt the walls of dread close in tighter around them. "Danny, we stand together," she said, trying with all her might to mask the fear engulfing her heart. "We don't let it take us. Not now." Then, a sound like claws scraping against wood broke the tension. Reality twisted as the shadows outside writhed, revealing eyes that glinted with an otherworldly hunger. "What is that?" Danny's small voice pierced the suffocating silence. "We fight," she breathed, adrenaline surging as she finally found a rusted hammer tucked away in the toolbox. "Whatever comes next, we fight." But in her gut, she felt the darkness lingering, waiting for the moment to strike again. And as she gripped the hammer, she couldn't shake the chilling sensation that they had only awakened something much worse. What would emerge from the shadowed depths once more? The cabin's thin walls felt less like a sanctuary and more like a ticking clock, counting down to the inevitable moment when the darkness would break through. Rachel's heart pounded deafeningly in her ears as she held the rusted hammer, its cold metal a strange comfort against her sweaty palms. The shadows outside were relentless, dancing like they had a mind of their own, twisting into grotesque shapes. The laughter, oh that laugh, echoed around the cabin, wrapping them in a chorus of menace. Mom, Danny's whisper trembled, his fear palpable like a living thing. What if it gets in? It won't, she said, forcing confidence she didn't feel. We'll keep it out. She moved swiftly to the door, pressing her weight against it as she peered through the grimy window. For a moment the clearing was bathed in moonlight, illuminating the dark shapes that lingered just outside the fragile borders of their refuge. Then just as suddenly, the moon disappeared behind thick clouds, plunging them back into darkness. Lights flickered and vanished in an instant. Oh God, Danny, she breathed, feeling panic claw at her throat. Suddenly, a thud against the door sent shockwaves of terror down her spine. She jumped back, hammer raised. Stay behind me. The thuds continued, rhythmic and insistent, as if something was testing the door's strength. I want to go home, Danny cried, his small hands clenching her shirt. Me too. But we can't, not yet. More laughter erupted outside, a cruel, distorted sound that seemed to reverberate right through her bones. We want to play. Let us in. The whispers merged into a cacophony, rising and falling, making it impossible to discern one voice from another. Rachel gritted her teeth, forcing herself to think. There must be something here. She turned away from the door and scanned the room, searching for any kind of weapon or tool that might help. The cabin was cramped, shadows pooling in corners where the moonlight couldn't reach. In the farthest corner stood a dusty bookshelf, sagging under the weight of forgotten items. Danny, can you look over there? She asked, pointing toward it. He hesitated, glancing at the door, then nodded as he moved. Rachel caught a glimpse of his scared face, trying valiantly to mask his terror. Her heart ached for his innocence. We'll find something. We just have to. Another heavy thud shook the door, rattling its hinges. The darkness pressed in closer, hungry and eager. Danny's small form fidgeted with an old book in his hands, the leather worn and cracked. Mom, is this important? He asked, frowning at the peculiar title, Songs of Shadows. She snatched it from him, flipping through the pages as fear radiated through her. I don't know yet. But as she scanned the yellowed pages, the laughter outside stilled and something deeper caught her attention, a sketch of a figure that resembled the shadow they had encountered. Below it, words that chilled her spine. What you fear is what you become. Panic fluttered in her chest. Danny, the door shuddered violently as claws scraped against the wood, splintering it. Rachel's breath caught. They wouldn't withstand another hit, and the shadows outside seemed to feel it too, a sinister glow behind the door that suggested they were almost there. Mom! We have to go, Danny shouted, eyes wide with fright. No, she yelled back, though uncertainty gnawed at her. Could they outrun whatever was coming? Then the door's lock cracked, a sound sharper than thunder. The shadows outside swirled faster, noise escalating into a suffocating howl. Let us in, a chorus of voices twisted through the air, and every fiber of her screamed to flee. The hammer gripped tightly in her hand. Rachel fell back against Danny, pulling him close. If it comes in, we fight. We don't let it take us. But inside, dread curled around her heart like a snake, whispering that they weren't truly safe anywhere. As the door began to give way, splintering under the weight of the force from the other side, Rachel opened her mouth to scream, a primal call that was swallowed by the chaos, and then there was silence. A deep, oppressive quiet that felt more terrifying than any noise. The shadows stopped moving, freezing as if they had paused to wait for something. What happened? Danny whispered, clinging tightly to her. Rachel strained her ears, feeling the tension crackle in the air. With bated breath, she knew that whatever waited just beyond that door, they were no longer in control. Maybe it's gone, Danny breathed, hope threading into his voice. What if, she said slowly, feeling a dawning realization press down on her. What if it's biding its time? As if in response, a soft rustle sounded from outside. A whisper so chilling it froze her blood. You can't hide from your fate, Mom. What's that? And Rachel knew with sickening certainty, they were about to find out. The silence that followed felt suffocating, heavy with the unspoken dread that hung in the air. Rachel's heart was a drum in her chest, each beat echoing her growing fear of what lay beyond the cabin door. "Mom," Danny's voice trembled, barely a whisper. She pulled him closer, feeling the warmth of his small body against her. They were in this together. They would fight together. Then they heard a soft, slithering sound that seemed to drift through the cracks of the door, invading their sanctuary. "You can't hide." Forever the voice was low, a cruel whisper that curled around them like smoke. Rachel tightened her grip on the hammer, heart racing again. "Stay behind me." No matter what, she instructed, more to reassure herself than him. Danny clung to her, his wide eyes glistening with adrenaline and fear. The shadows outside warped and twisted, clawing at the window's edges, leaving behind faint trails of darkness, a touch of malevolence that promised no safe movement. With a heaving breath, she yelled, "Show yourself." A boldness coursed through her. She wasn't just going to wait for it to strike. The laughter erupted again, echoing with a sinister delight that made her skin crawl. "You think you can face me? Who do you think you are?" "I'm badass," Rachel whispered, using every ounce of her willpower to summon courage. "I am not afraid of you." "Not afraid." The voice teased, morphing into a cacophony of many voices. "You should be." Another thud shook the door. The hinges creaked in protest, the wood splintering under the unbearable pressure. Rachel felt a rush, the insistent pull of impending doom. But she wouldn't let fear take control. "Let us in," they sang, a choir of desperation, weaving their way into the cracks of her resolve. "No," she shouted defiantly, her voice cracking. "You want us? You need to come through me." Suddenly the air around them shifted, thickening. All at once the shadows coalesced, an all-consuming darkness that filled the cabin and obscured everything else. The door shuttered again and Rachel bolted towards it, nails biting into her palm. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the shadows withdrew. The laughter faded, leaving an unsettling silence that settled like a fog before the storm. "Mom, what is happening?" Danny muffled against her side, voice quaking. "Stay close," she whispered, peeling her eyes from the door, scanning for a way out. There was a window if they could make it to that. Their escape plan nearly met a swift end as another, more powerful thud shook the cabin. The door buckled, splintering further. They only had moments left before it broke through. "Go," Rachel urged, sprinting towards the cluttered window. Her heart raced as she pulled away debris that might trap them. "Climb up." Danny scrambled for the window, his small body determined and agile as fear pushed them both onward. Rachel felt the rush of wind from the outside as she shoved aside the last remnants of darkness woven into the cabin. "I can't," he choked out, eyes widening on the threshold of escape. "Just push through," she urged, anxiety choking her. She turned back, feeling the eyes of the shadows watching her every move. "Now, Danny. Now." With one final heave, she lifted him through the window, adrenaline surging as she felt the cabin shudder under the force of whatever lurked behind the door. She followed, pushing herself through glass and wood, aching painfully as she rolled onto the forest floor. The night air felt shockingly cold against her flushed skin, and the world outside was a stark contrast, a harsh awakening from the hell they had briefly known. Rachel looked back just in time to see the door explode inward, darkness spilling forth like a living nightmare, eager to reclaim what it had lost. But they were free now, running into the depths of the woods, the calls of lost souls trailing behind them. "Don't look back," Rachel shouted, pulling Danny closer. Fear spurred them both into a desperate sprint across the uneven ground. The laughter faded, swallowed by the branches overhead as they fled. And though the shadows loomed, they felt the reins of control slipping into their hands. Every tree that brushed against them became an ally, every rustle a guide. The weight of fear cracked open the barriers of hope. The memories, the laughter, the warmth of family fueled their flight. As dawn peeked through the dense trees, casting soft hues on the ground, Rachel felt the chains of despair relent. In the distance, the outline of the town appeared, a glimmer of safety against the chaos that had surged in the night. Rachel's hand found Danny's, fierce and unyielding. Together they stepped into the light of a new day, shrouded in golden warmth. The shadows may choke at their backs, but she would no longer be a prisoner of fear. "Mom, are we safe?" Danny's voice broke the silence, bright with innocence. Rachel knelt beside him, pulling him into a fierce embrace. "For now. But we must be ready. We will always fight." The shadows might haunt the edges of darkness, but Rachel had armor now: hope, strength, and the unwavering love for her son. As they walked toward the place that had once felt like sweet refuge, Rachel knew whatever lay ahead. She was ready to face it head-on. The laughter echoed far behind, a remnant of a nightmare she had escaped, but she had found clarity amid it all. With Danny at her side, she could challenge whatever darkness came next. If you made it this far, you need to subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss more exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button to help feed the algorithm, and ensure we keep bringing you the chilling tales you crave. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this finale. Your voice matters. This is your moment to show your support. Share this video with at least 5 friends who have to see this epic conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. The darkness is always lurking, and you can never be too prepared for what comes next.